So, excuse me if I sound a little exhausted. It's like midnight right now, and I usually record midday. So, before I get started, this video is not monetized, and I'm probably going to delete it within the next week or two, something like that. But, there's a lot of things going on in the Twisted community that have really been upsetting me recently, and I just wanted to talk to them to get some stuff off my chest. There's three major points that I want to hit in this video, and I'm going to talk about them in order of least important to me to most important to me. That's the least important being first, most important being last. And I'm kind of going to just chase in the background because I want you guys to have at least something to watch so you don't get bored to death. So the first point I wanted to hit is the Severity versus Twisted moderator slash staff team beef, which is so stupid. It's immature, it's dumb, it's useless. It doesn't do anything except for make people mad. There's a lot of arguments that go on between Severity and Twisted staff that mostly relate to one staff team thinking they're better than the other. You know, sure, you could go different directions with who moderators you get along with better or whose moderation rules you agree with more, but that is a subjective matter at the end of the day. Twisted moderation has had quite a bit of screw-ups. I know from experience that there is a lot of communication issues with the staff team, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the main thing I hate to see is Twisted staff and Severity staff directly hating on each other, because in my opinion both sides are somewhat in the wrong. Severity always talks the same points about Twisted, how their moderators are not exactly qualified for the job, which in some cases I see being very true for a lot of moderators. There are a lot of moderators who do next to nothing, which is a huge problem. At the same time, I kind of side with those moderators because there's a good handful of moderators that also do way too much. A lot of moderators treat it like a full-time job and are chronically online. I should add, on top of the fact that this is extremely annoying and toxic behavior, it's just straight up unhealthy for you. And for your sake, if you do this, stop. I've seen a lot of Twisted moderators treat getting mod logs as a competition between each other, and there's always a race to see who can get to what mod logs first. Say someone does something bad in the Discord server, they're like competing so they get the mod log in their name, acting like it's a point system that will get them rewards or something, when it's literally not. It's just a community effort to make the server better. And I know a lot of moderators also tend to be very competitive with the support tickets. For the short amount of time that I was on the support team, it was hard to do anything because every time I would get pinged to answer a ticket, there would be another support member there in 5 seconds, and I wouldn't have time to answer it before someone else got to it. And it got annoying, so I stopped doing stuff altogether, and obviously am not on the support team anymore. Just to sum it up, it seems like a lot of Twisted moderators and support members are either very underqualified for the job or take it way too seriously for what it is. And now for the points that the Twisted moderators and staff team in general make towards Severity. For some context, if you don't know, Severity exists because Wilza and Sean left Twisted, and there is a lot of hate towards them for that reason. People will very commonly say that they don't like Severity because they feel Twisted was very abandoned by its developers in order to make Severity come to life, which is completely reasonable. The first time I heard about Severity, I was a little, I guess, questioning it, but you know, the more I see about Severity, the better I feel about it, honestly, which I know is off topic. But the other thing they say is that the Severity staff members tend to be, I guess, very cocky and a little overzealous, which I'm not going to name names, but that can be very true as well. Now, when I say a lot of these things, I'm really trying very hard to not let my own opinion take too much control here, as I want this to be as fair as possible. Now, the next point I wanted to hit, just a fair warning, might get a little controversial because I'm going to name names now. I've had a problem with what a lot of people would name as quote-unquote slop content creators. Now, this is going to get very opinionated, unlike the last time as well, because, you know, content creation is a subjective matter, and you can like whatever content you want, but there are a couple people that I want to point out, and nobody's pointed them out publicly before, and I don't necessarily know that I'm going to be the first, but I definitely hope I'm not the last person to point this type of stuff out. First things first, I've noticed a lot of issues with recycled content ideas. The main thing I have here is with people uploading videos on the same things endlessly. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm somewhat guilty of this. I just uploaded a part 2 to the 30 things I find annoying and twisted video. Granted, it was, you know, a year apart from the last video I did like that. But recycled content is recycled content. Am I proud that I did that? Not necessarily, but at the same time, I didn't really have a better idea of what to do at the time. Because content ideas are rough right now. And I'll talk a little bit more in my next point, because there is a huge reason for that. But anyway, back on to the main point. There's 2 specific YouTubers that I want to speak about here, and if you want to retaliate, I'm perfectly okay with that. If you want to talk to me about it, I'm perfectly okay with that. First one I'm going to talk about is Ardub. I've seen you post quite a lot of boosted thermos videos, and even if you're unwillingly doing this, I really hate to call you out on this because I truly do respect you, Ardub, but the spamming of boosted content has got to stop, because it's ruining it for everybody else too. When you do something that a community views as special so much, it loses its spark. When you do, you know, a 15th, 20th boosted video, they're not special anymore because there's so much of it. And I will say this, I think most of us content creators, and even probably some viewers, agree 100 million cape is where it should have stopped. That should have been the end. 90 million cape was really the last boosted event where I had fun. 100 million was a perfect send-off because it had a little bit of a twist too with collisions and stuff being on and whatever, but you know, I'm getting off topic again. Anyway, as I was saying, when stuff is repeated so much, it loses its spark. It doesn't feel quite as special anymore. And, you know, I'm guilty of stuff like this too, but it's inevitable. Stuff that happens often or continuously, even if it's spread far enough out, it's going to get boring to not only watch as a viewer, but to make as a content creator too. In the past, I used to upload a lot of content on just regular old storm chases. Nothing boosted, nothing special, just regular old high risks. And, you know, as I'm saying with boosted servers here in this scenario, after a while, it stopped working. Now, I am aware that this was a very different era of Twisted. You know, this was 2022, 2023, and a little bit into 2024 when I was doing this. And Twisted is a completely different community now. That's not what people want to see, and that's not what people want to make. Correct me if I'm wrong, by all means, but I personally am sick of making boosted content, and I am sick of watching it. If there's other people out there that still want to see it, great. Correct me if I'm wrong. I will gladly accept that I might be wrong. But at the same time, boosted content is, starting to feel like an old cow that, has been milked so much that it's not going to produce anymore. Boosted servers is kind of, I guess, a content cow, and milking it only works for so long because, like real cows, it gets old and it will eventually die off. Now, using this analogy, I want to point out one other YouTuber still and their own little types of videos they do. And that YouTuber is Twiststorm. Twiststorm has been uploading a lot of videos on future Twisted updates, specifically 1.23 or I guess 1.3, whatever the next big updates are going to be called. There's been a lot, and I mean a lot, of update leak videos, update teaser videos, and yeah, that's not a good thing in the slightest. The problem with spamming update leak videos like this is, especially if they're just very minor updates that don't have, a lot of new information or specific value that sets it apart from any other update videos, it'll drown out the rest of any kind of update video. This is extremely problematic to not just Twiststorm, but the entire community in general. And I'm saying not just content creators, viewers as well. Because when there actually is new information in large amounts, or new leaks, or heck, even the update itself finally comes out, there are going to be people that will pass it off as, just a normal, like another regular old leaks video. And people won't click on the videos, which that's bad for them because they're not getting the information. And it's bad for content creators too, because not as many people see the videos, and that's really bad for our videos getting out to the algorithm as well, which ends up being bad for the games themselves too, because less people are going to know about the updates, less people are going to be enticed to come back to the game when they see that there might be a new update from a YouTube video, because again, like I said, they're just going to pass it off as another sort of clickbait-ish video. And even though it's a small step, it is technically a step towards killing the community in general, which I know it's a stretch, but it still is not good for the community. That being said, once again, I respect the grind. I respect that you constantly are making videos and actually find something to make videos on, because that isn't easy for a lot of us. I do respect the grind, but the way that the grind is being done might want to change that up just a little bit. Now, I don't want this to come across as disrespectful, I suppose, because it does. I do understand how this could seem like I'm telling other people how to do their jobs. It's more so a warning the way I see it, because it won't work forever. And now I'm on to my third and final point. More work needs to be done on Twisted. If you open up the changelogs in Twisted, there has been one thing posted all month, and that's just the 4th of July event. And the problem with this is that bug fixes take forever to get posted. As someone who still plays the game somewhat frequently, bug fixes are not something that could just be put on the back burner, or something that can be, shoved off. But I am going to die on the hill that not enough is being done in Twisted right now, especially for the size of the game. And bug fixes need to get pushed out more often. Smaller updates need to get pushed out more often. Now, I know that there is a lot of anticipation coming up for some future major updates, like the new map is a big one, and the new storms that are coming up by Cryonics. Since some things, especially Cryonics' storms, are so close to being finished, it's okay for some bug fixes to be released en masse when that comes out. But that being said, after that, there absolutely needs to be a constant stream of bug fixes and even new, smaller features. We just need anything to keep the game alive because it's killing the community. That is the sole reason that content creators have no good video ideas right now, except for some diamonds in the rough every now and then. The game has no new content. It's impossible to come up with new content ideas out of the blue every week for some of us creators, let alone every day for creators like Ardub. If we get, say, Space recently leaked a vehicle remodel. That is the Tim one. That could be a small thing that gets released as a minor update in just like a little patch. You know, that is like an acceptable thing to be in an update on its own. Just for another example off the top of my head, say that there wanted to be some, like, I don't know, slight map changes, like they switch up like a block in Hazleton to have like some different buildings just to switch it up. That's okay. But when bug fixes happen and new with smaller features are released, they need to be released as they're finished. I am sick and tired of having nothing to make content off of just because the game doesn't update. Yes, I love that I am able to put my own twist on things, no pun intended, but I can only do it so much before I start running out of ideas on the same game that it feels like we've had since 2024. There haven't been any major changes to anything since May of 2024. Sure, in 1.21.1 we got some graphics updates, and you know, I guess Starbuck being completely reimagined was a pretty big thing, but 1.21.2 had the new tornado models, and then 1.22 had some Dow radars and photography. And that's been it since May of 2024. I'm sorry, but that's pathetic. Especially for the size of the game now. The game was updating constantly back in the day, in like 2022, 2023. You know, Twisted 1.17 did a lot. Twisted 1.18 was around 10 months later. That was a huge update. That was great for the game. Twisted 1.19 was only 2.5 months after 1.18 was released, and there was a whole other 1.18.1 update in between that, and that's just in a 2.5 month time span, and we've got less than that 5 times over pretty much in the past 2.5 years. It's pathetic. Twisted is going to die if this rate continues. And you know what? It's okay if some stuff gets put on the backlog just so it can be completely, you know, ready for release or ready for everybody to see it. But putting the small stuff like vehicle remodels or smaller new features, that's inexcusable to be holding back, because it just sticks us with the same thing we've had for so long, and we can't keep going off of this same thing that's been going on for so long. You know, I still have a lot of hope for the game, because while stuff is going rapidly downhill, in my opinion, it's not yet too far gone. But if something doesn't change soon, it will be. That's all I really have to say for now. Like I said in the intro, this video is probably not going to last very long. This video will probably not be on YouTube anymore within the next 2 weeks or less. But I just feel the need to stir up some discussion, because stuff is getting absurd. And if we want to still have this community, heck, within the next year, even, something needs to change. Peace.